Pine Grove Curse. Emily is a 28-year-old outdoor enthusiast with a love for hiking and the wilderness. With a determined personality and resourceful skills, she always leads her group during their outdoor adventures. Mark, her 30-year-old boyfriend, shares her love for the outdoors. He is tech-savvy and always brings along gadgets to make the trip easier and safer. Sarah, Mark's 25-year-old sister, is new to hiking but eager to learn. Though a bit clumsy and naive, she is excited to be part of the adventure. The story takes place in Pine Grove Trail, a remote and secluded hiking spot known for its breathtaking natural beauty. Tall pines and oaks cover the landscape, broken only by meandering creeks and rocky outcrops. The trail is notorious for its vague history of hikers mysteriously disappearing or suffering fatal accidents. Though authorities have never found definitive proof of foul play or natural predators, the trail has earned a dark reputation among local communities. Emily, Mark, and Sarah meet at Emily's house early in the morning to finalize their preparations. They double-check their gear, ensuring that they have enough food, water, and medical supplies. Mark syncs his GPS device and walkie-talkies, while Emily reviews the trail map one last time. As they pack their gear into the car, Emily feels a fleeting sense of unease. She can't quite place the feeling, attributing it to pre-trip jitters, and dismisses it as they drive to the trailhead. The trio arrives at the Pine Grove Trail parking lot. They put on their hiking boots, hoist their backpacks, and set off enthusiastically. The initial stretch of the hike is both beautiful and invigorating. Towering trees provide a canopy of shade, and the sound of birds chirping fills the air. Sarah struggles a bit, but keeps pace, and they make several stops to admire the views and take photos. As they ascend, they encounter an old man resting on a log near a makeshift rest stop. "You folks headed to the summit?" he asks, his eyes squinting as if measuring their abilities. "We plan to," Mark responds. "Make sure you're off the trail by sundown," the old man warns. This forest has a mind of its own when the light fades. They nod politely, assuming he's another local spooked by the trail's reputation, and continue their hike. Around mid-afternoon, they stumble upon an abandoned campsite just off the main trail. The ashes in the fire pit are still warm, and the tent looks like it was hastily taken down. Various items, such as a water bottle, a tattered map, and a ripped backpack, are scattered around the area. It's as if the previous campers left in a hurry, or were interrupted. "This is odd," Emily remarks, taking out her utility knife to cut a loose thread from her backpack. "Who would leave all this behind?" "Maybe they got spooked by the tales of Pine Grove Trail," Sarah says, half joking. Emily feels her earlier unease return, but she keeps it to herself. After a few more minutes examining the site, they decide to move on, leaving the mystery of the abandoned campsite unsolved for now. Little do they know, this is just the beginning of their descent into the unknown horrors lurking within Pine Grove Trail. After leaving the abandoned campsite, the trio continues their hike, aiming to reach a specific lookout point before turning back. However, the trail seems to subtly shift around them. Landmarks they remember passing on the way up, like a distinctively gnarled tree or a creek crossing, are either missing or appear altered. They consult the map, but it offers no clarity. The trail on paper no longer matches the one beneath their feet. "This doesn't make sense," Emily mutters, increasingly uneasy. Just as they decide to retrace their steps, Sarah trips over a protruding tree root. She cries out as she tumbles, clutching her ankle in obvious pain. Emily and Mark rush to her side. After a quick examination, Emily confirms that Sarah has sprained her ankle. They use a first aid kit to bandage it up as best as they can, but it's clear that Sarah won't be able to continue the hike as planned. They have to get her off the trail, and quickly. "We need to head back now," says Mark, his voice tinged with urgency. As they prepare to make a splint for Sarah's ankle, Emily reaches for her utility knife. To her surprise, it's not there. She frantically checks all her pockets, then her backpack. The knife is gone. "I last used it at that abandoned campsite," she says, her voice shaking a little. "I must have left it there." Mark suggests going back to retrieve it, but Emily vehemently refuses. "We can't afford to lose more time," she says, hiding her growing sense of dread. "We need to move." Mark takes out his walkie-talkies and tries to contact the local ranger station. All he gets is static. Frustrated, he checks his GPS device, only to find it malfunctioning, displaying erratic coordinates. "Our phones, maybe?" Sarah suggests, hopeful. They all pull out their smartphones. No signal. The devices seem oddly sluggish, their screens flickering occasionally. "Everything electronic is failing," Mark says, his eyes meeting Emily's. This can't be a coincidence. Realizing the gravity of their situation, they improvise a splint for Sarah using hiking poles and some cloth. Mark helps her up, and they begin their slow descent. But the sun is setting faster than they are moving. The light filtering through the trees turns a deep golden, then orange, and finally a dim gray. Despite their best efforts, it becomes clear they won't make it out before nightfall. "We need to set up camp," Emily says reluctantly, eyeing the dying light. It's not safe to navigate this terrain in the dark, especially with Sarah's injury. The decision is unanimous, but filled with silent dread. As they pitch their tent in a small clearing, the last rays of the sun disappear, plunging Pine Grove Trail into darkness. What awaits them is unknown, but one thing is clear: they are not alone. As night envelopes the forest, they remember the old man's warning. The forest indeed seems to have a mind of its own, and as they zip up their tent, they can't shake off the feeling that it's closing in on them. The sun has long set, and the trio sits around a campfire they managed to start, despite their frazzled nerves. The darkness in Pine Grove Trail is unlike any they've experienced before. Impenetrable and almost tangible. As they huddle close to the fire, the sounds of the forest grow increasingly strange. The normal chirps and rustles of woodland creatures are absent, replaced by a quiet so profound it's unsettling. Then come the whispers, soft, indecipherable, almost blending in with the rustle of leaves. "Is it just me, or does it sound like someone is talking?" Sarah whispers, her eyes wide with fear. "We're probably just on edge." Mark tries to rationalize, but his voice lacks conviction. Despite their discomfort, they know someone must keep watch while the others sleep. They decide to take shifts. Mark takes the first one, sitting close to the dying fire, every sense heightened. Time drags on, each minute stretching longer than the last. Just when he thinks he can relax, he notices a shadow at the edge of the campfire light. It's human-shaped but hazy, and it vanishes the moment he shines his flashlight toward it. His heart pounds in his chest as he wakes Emily for her shift. Deciding not to mention what he saw or thought he saw, Emily takes her seat by the dying embers, stoking the fire to bring it back to life. The first half of her watch is uneventful, the forest as silent as a grave. She becomes lost in thought, pondering what could be going so terribly wrong. Then she notices Mark's compass lying next to her. It's spinning slowly, its needle refusing to point north. Just then she feels it, a presence, watching her. She scans the dark tree line and spots a silhouette. Just like Mark, she reaches for her flashlight, but before she can turn it on, the figure is gone. Sarah wakes up with a scream, jolting Emily and Mark out of their fitful rest. The items from the abandoned campsite, a tattered backpack, a ripped map, and a cracked lantern, are now neatly arranged next to their sleeping bags inside the tent. "How did these get here?" Sarah shrieks, her eyes filled with tears. "We're not alone. Someone, or something, is out there," Emily says, her voice quivering. Overwhelmed with a sense of dread, they debate whether to stay in the tent or to brave the dark woods to find a way out. Ultimately, they decide to stay where they are, zipping up the tent and huddling together. The logic is simple. There's safety in numbers, and the walls of the tent, flimsy as they are, provide the illusion of a barrier between them and whatever lurks outside. They spend the night wide awake, jumping at every sound, their eyes darting to every corner of the tent. The whispers grow louder as the night progresses, but dawn finally arrives, revealing an untouched camp and a trail that seems to have returned to normal. As they prepare to leave, the reality of the night's events sink in. They were never truly alone. They were never truly safe. And as they hurriedly pack up to make their descent, They can't shake off the feeling that they're still being watched, that the forest's eyes are still upon them, waiting for another nightfall. As the first rays of sunlight pierce through the canopy of trees, a collective sigh of relief escapes the trio. Despite the horrors of the night, daylight brings a renewed sense of hope. But as Emily puts out the remnants of their campfire, she notices that the landscape seems different, almost as if the forest has rearranged itself overnight. "We need to go. Now," she says, urgency filling her voice. With Sarah's sprained ankle, their pace is painstakingly slow, but they try to move as quickly as they can. The GPS and phones are still not functioning, but Emily's traditional compass, now mysteriously accurate again, guides them toward the trailhead. The forest seems normal in the light of day, but they can't shake the fear that they're still being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig amplifies their paranoia. Just as they start to believe they might escape unscathed, they stumble upon the abandoned campsite they had found the day before. Everything is as they left it, except for one detail. Emily's missing utility knife is now conspicuously placed in the center of the fire pit, clean and glinting in the sunlight. "Is that your knife?" Mark asks, bewildered. Emily picks it up cautiously, nodding. "We need to keep moving," she says, her intuition screaming that lingering would be a terrible mistake. With renewed urgency, they push through the final stretch of their descent. After what seems like an eternity, they finally spot the parking lot through the trees. Relief washes over them as they break through the forest edge, the oppressive weight of the forest lifting the moment they step into the clearing. Emily, Mark, and Sarah share a look that says more than words ever could. They made it out, but they're forever changed. They waste no time packing up their car and driving away from Pine Grove Trail. As they pull onto the highway, Mark turns on the radio, filling the car with the soothing sounds of a classic rock station. No one speaks. The events of the last 24 hours hang heavy in the air. Just as they pass the sign marking the end of Pine Grove, Emily glances in the rearview mirror. For a split second, she sees the shadowy silhouette of a figure standing at the forest's edge, watching them as they drive away. She blinks, and it's gone. No one mentions returning to Pine Grove Trail ever again, but they all know they'll carry the mysteries and terrors of those woods with them forever. And while they never speak of it, a silent agreement forms between them. Some places are best left unexplored, some thresholds best left uncrossed. They arrive back at Emily's house, each quietly grateful for the sanctuary of familiar surroundings. Despite the comforts of home, soft beds, warm showers, and hot meals, they can't shake the residual unease. Emily locks all the doors and windows, more out of instinct than rational fear. Mark checks the security system twice. Sarah pulls the curtains closed, as if the thin fabric could serve as a shield against the unexplained phenomena they'd experienced. They say their good nights and retreat to their respective rooms, but sleep doesn't come easily. A week later, Mark comes across a local news article about Pine Grove Trail. 2 hikers have gone missing, their campsite discovered in a state strikingly similar to the one they had found. Authorities are blaming wildlife, but the article subtly alludes to the trail's mysterious history. Mark shares the article with Emily and Sarah. They read it in grim silence, each contemplating the dark possibilities. Could it have been them? Had they narrowly escaped a worse fate? The questions hang in the air, unanswered and unsettling. Months pass and life starts to regain a sense of normalcy, or as normal as it can be. Emily is scrolling through her phone one evening when she notices a photo she doesn't remember taking. The timestamp shows it was taken during their hike at Pine Grove Trail. Curious and a little apprehensive, she taps on the thumbnail to view it. The photo is blurry and underexposed, but as she looks closer, she sees the shadowy outline of a figure standing behind them. It's at the very edge of the frame, partially concealed by trees. She zooms in and feels a shiver run down her spine. The figure seems to be looking directly at the camera. She never shows the photo to Mark or Sarah, choosing instead to delete it. But the image is seared into her memory, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Despite the passage of time and the return to daily routines, they each harbor an unsettling sense of unfinished business. Emily, Mark, and Sarah continue to live their lives, but the experience at Pine Grove Trail serves as a chilling footnote, an encounter with an inexplicable darkness that refuses to be forgotten or understood. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. Write which story you liked the most in the comments.